So I'm doing this video in this moment because I need to just unpack a little bit. We are like an hour away from the first Zoom meeting that we will be having. Today is the summer solstice. I'm excited about this meeting, and I want to make sure that I go into this space with good intention. So there are some things that I need to verbally unload. And I want to be really thoughtful as I'm verbally injecting this into the veins of the Earth's nervous system. I've said this before. New York is not the place that I would choose to live. I'm grateful for the opportunity to meet new people, to learn, to grow, to expand in consciousness, to be able to look at things from a different perspective. But as a creative who was brought up in the South, space, quiet, these are things that I value. And these things are not often a guarantee in New York. Also, another thing we deal with a lot is everyone wants something from you. Everybody wants something from you. And regardless as to whether they are giving you something that is of quality, they still want something from you in return. Layman's terms, sometimes house or rent checks don't come on time. Sometimes they're late. And then you have your landlord calling you, bothering you, because HASA's late with the rent checks. And so now you've got to reach out to HASA during your birthday season, during Pride season, where you're trying to celebrate your community's resilience, where you're trying to enjoy your birthday, where you're trying to heal from surgery, where you're trying to make peace with one of your closest relatives having stage 4 cancer, and we don't know if they're going to be here or gone tomorrow. You're trying to grapple with that, preparing to go back home for the third time since December, because that's how committed I am to continuing my relationship with Louisiana and showing up for the state in which I was birthed in. I say all the time, I feel like I'm working remotely. And it's amazing how I do this with such limited support. If it wasn't for some of my sisters in this community, some of my brothers and my non-conforming family in Louisiana, the support that I received from my sister Octavia out of Atlanta, and my children, my queer children, and these one or two little small grants that I'm eligible for, where would this work be? People don't understand that I literally try to make $1 out of 15 cents all the time. People don't understand that as a part of Louisiana queer history, heritage, I'm still struggling. When you think about when we started to see a shift in people being released from having to register as sex offenders for crime against nature, my work played a critical part in that. Did I receive any acknowledgement for that? Did I receive any financial support for that? Did I receive resources set to the side so that I could build for community because of that? No, I did not. When the police department started to treat trans and queer people differently, who they were harassing initially, I played a crucial part in that as well. A lot of the people that they worked with from the queer community were people that were already working with me from New Legacy. Did I get any support from that? Did I get any acknowledgement? Major organizations in Louisiana, like No AIDS Task Force and the state, got multi-million-dollar grants because of the stories that I was able to help community come forth and tell, the information and the data that they were able to collect, and they're still able to collect from our community because of relationships with people that I knew before they did when the community was underground. Have I ever received adequate support, adequate funding? Has any of these organizations or any of these entities reached out and said, "Hey, we feel like you were kind of forced out of here, and you are a crucial and integral part of Louisiana's history, not just queer history, not just Black history, but the whole story. You are a crucial part of that, and we can't tell this story with you being exiled, with you being pushed out, with you being up in New York, living in a small apartment when we could actually give resources to help you fix up your grandmother's home so it could be livable for you to stay in, so you could be back in the South and you could be doing what you love with the people that you've been fighting for most of your life. But what happens is people will use you up and people will use you up. And this is not just dedicated to cis people. This is not just dedicated to people outside of the community, because a lot of times Black trans people, whether you're trans men or trans women, you don't show up unless there's some money involved. You don't show up unless it's a chance for you to be centered, for you to Vogue and Kiki and pantomime. But then you will be the first to say how the world mistreats you and how you don't get any rights and how you don't get anything. But the only time you want to show up is when it's time to center yourself, to watch someone else fail, or for you to get a coin. As much as I want to say this is more the community's fault, I have to say that these institutions, these people who have access to the funds and the resources, who are choosing not to put resources in the hands of people who are actually capable of change. And I say this as the first being like myself with this type of skin, who was born into a male body and identifies more with womanhood. I say this as a being who was able to organize the first 9 Black trans women to come together and sit in front of a camera back in 2010 to testify that the police were harassing us. And at this time, this was unheard of because we were afraid that we were going to be targeted and harmed and there was going to be retaliation from the police department. But I was trusted enough for 9 Black trans women to stand in front of the camera so that I could share their story with Arlinda Westbrook, who was in a position of authority in the New Orleans legal department at the time and was able to do something to make a difference in collaboration with the Department of Justice. All of the things that I've done that are documented in local queer newspapers, on my YouTube channel, I was on the front page of the Times Picayune when the first gay couple was married in Louisiana because I was there. Not to mention, I had the first faith based public access TV show shown in New Orleans that celebrated and centered Black trans queer people. How y'all gonna tell this story and leave out all of these contributions? How y'all gonna have People who've made such a huge difference in the fabric of the queer community struggling, and invite everybody to speak except the people who are the reason why all of this is happening. Y'all should be ashamed to call it pride, because where is your pride in your actual heritage? It's so like Louisiana to let the story of the trans movement start from no shade to West Ware, a white trans man galvanizing trans people at breakout, when really before that it was beings like Diamond Deakey, who was on billboards being the face of HIV to get people to get tested and to know their status. And then there was beings like me who marked the moment that we stop just lip singing and being seen as simply entertainers and gave the community a voice that rung from the steps of City Hall for the first time. But you can invite everybody else down and pay them to speak at Black Pride. And the sad part about it is, people would rather show up to be entertained than show up to celebrate the power of their heritage and the fact that beings like us, some of us survived, because not all of us did. There was beings like Tara Lynn Fox, who in her own way was bringing awareness to our existence during a time when it was uncomfortable even to talk about it. We come from a heritage where you could get arrested from walking down the street if you didn't have on 3 pieces of clothing that were male identified. You could go to jail for that. You could go to jail for standing on a corner trying to fellowship with your community because there were really no safe spaces for us to meet where we could be centered and where we could love on each other without having to deal with violent men, unruly dates or johns, police officers harassing us, trying to meet their quota and get a Christmas bonus of some sorts, racism, sexism, transphobia, homophobia, you name it. And you know the part that really, really gets me is that a lot of y'all get mad when white people say, get over it, let it go, stop talking about slavery, stop talking about racism. But then you turn around and do the same thing to black trans women, to black trans femmes, to black queer folk. Oh, that happened years ago. You still talking about that? Girl, you bitter? You still ain't over that? Make that make sense. Look in the mirror. And to say that y'all sit up here doing pride and y'all actually proud. Y'all don't even value your own matriarchs and patriarchs. You don't even value your own people who've helped to make the movement what it is. You don't value your own. Yet you want somebody to value you, and y'all wonder why there are so many bills that are coming against us, so much trans legislation. You wonder why I won't get out there and support, why I won't encourage people to support these institutions and these systems that are constantly trying to edit our narratives and tell our stories for us and shape our narratives for us. I am disgusted by it. And I say this with the utmost respect. I am so tired of dealing with not being appreciated by a community and by people and by a society that I have contributed so much light and creativity to. I remember the It Gets Better campaign. Still waiting for it to get better. I was filling out a grant the other day, and it got to a place on the grant where they said, does your organization make upwards of, like, it starts with $50,000. Like, your organization has to be making $50,000 to be eligible for $25,000. And I'm still going to turn the grant in, even though I know my budget is not $50,000, because I want you to have that on your conscience, that you are consistently not supporting people who are actually doing the work, who are actually trying to make a difference. If you don't give people a chance, if you don't lay things at people's conscience, they could always say, well, it was never presented to me. So I'm going to turn the grant in and lay it at your conscience. And this is a grant in Louisiana. It's literally about telling your own story. Louisiana is a funding source. Rejection doesn't bother me anymore because my work speaks for itself. People be asking me, what have you done? What have you contributed to community? What are some of your wins? It's a timeline at this point. Name one Black-led, trans-led organization in New Orleans where a Black trans person is the ED, a Black trans woman specifically, is clearing over $50,000. And if you can name one, you probably could name them on one hand. The most important stories that need to be told are the stories that y'all don't want to tell. Remember that when you're soliciting people to tell stories. The stories that have the power to create the most impact and to really shift the consciousness and create the change that we need to bring balance and healing, collective healing to society, are the stories that you're not telling, nor are you preparing people to be able to hear. Because you yourself, a lot of you who have positions of power, have been so busy pursuing access, resources, and monetary gain that you have not really done any healing work on yourself. Many of you are dressed up garbage cans with degrees, who've been tap dancing for seats at tables that you actually should have done flipped over by now. And because you can mask it with big words and nice clothes, because you can perform professionalism, everybody gives you a pass. But the constant legislation that is piling up against queer people speaks to the fact that your education, your ability to perform in a way that is palpable and acceptable to white supremacy, patriarchy, and the status quo is not going to win the race. It's not going to get us grand prize. It's going to get you the prize in the Cracker Jack box. And what can you really do with that? Besides be entertained for a few moments. But do carry on. I've said what I needed to say. And I did it without eating a greasy pork chop. 48 years growth. But that don't mean that I'm not going to say what's on my heart. Y'all take care, be well, and remember to light your candles for the ancestors who have transitioned this realm. Y'all take care, be well. Remember to light your candles for the ancestors who transitioned this well. Take care, be well. Remember to light your candles for the ancestors who are transitioning this world, who are coming into this world. and to breathe. Because if you don't, this world will eat you alive. Love y'all later. Take care. Be well. Laylim Layla Nation, purple ones, rise.